College football has gone absolutely crazy in the last year. From the rise of NIL to conference realignment and college football playoff expansion talks, the sport has seen a lot of crazy stuff happen, and just when I thought it was finally going to be over and we could finally settle in, we just got hit with probably the biggest news that could shake up the entire sport and change the college football landscape forever. What news am I talking about? We're talking about UCLA and USC leaving the Pac-12 to go to the Big Ten. In today's video, I want to have some fun and let's do some conference realignment. We're going to assume the Pac-12 dies from this. We're not going to talk about any financial constraints, and I'm going to say it becomes 4 conferences instead of 2. So those are the rules going into it. Let's have some fun, and please be sure to let me know down below what you think as we go through the video. Let me know what you think should happen in conference realignment, and what are your thoughts on everything going on. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Let's first look at the 4 conferences and how they will look The Big Ten is obviously going to stay pretty much the same, as they'll have their 14 teams, and currently these are ranked by how big of a brand they are. Some people might be upset with those rankings, but I based it on team performance and their TV market value, so that is my rankings for the Big Ten. The SEC is the same way, as well as the ACC and the Big 12. From the looks of it right now, it looks like the weakest conference by far is the Big 12, but they will have an opportunity to add some teams that could make them at least competitive and stay afloat in the conference race. The ACC is the conference with the most to lose, and I do think there's going to be a lot of changes in that conference. So let's first start with the teams that have moved on for sure. That includes Texas and Oklahoma. Those 2 schools will be going to the SEC, but I don't think the conference will be done just yet, as I think they're going to pluck the biggest 4 brands from the ACC. I don't think this will be a complete death blow to the conference, as they will try to at least make something work, but I think the top 4 schools from the ACC will end up going to the SEC. Those schools include Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and North Carolina. The debate for the 4th school is somewhat controversial, as some would say Virginia Tech is the bigger football brand, and while I can't necessarily disagree with that, North Carolina is a bigger brand as a whole, and if we are including basketball, that would be a great team to add. So let's go ahead and move those 4 schools from the ACC over to the SEC. So the ACC definitely has a major shakeup there, so what's going to end up happening to that conference? We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's go back over to the Big Ten. Obviously, they added UCLA and USC, and that is definitely going to make things very interesting. Imagine it being a cold October afternoon, and USC has just flown across the country to play Penn State. That is definitely not something I ever thought I would hear, but it seems that is going to be a reality moving forwards. So the Big Ten now has 16 teams, and the school they're most likely to get first is Notre Dame. Notre Dame is very smart, and they know that they will be left behind if they do not join a conference. And I know the people in the leadership there are not stupid, so while a deal has not been made yet at the time of recording this video, let's go ahead and move the Fighting Irish over to the Big Ten, which would leave them 3 slots if we are doing a 20-team conference for them. So what other schools should the Big Ten look to add? Well, this is where things get very interesting. Out of all those schools remaining, the biggest brands are definitely Washington and Oregon, and I know the Big Ten would love to get their hands on them. For the sake of fun and making the conferences a little bit more balanced, let's say the Big 12 comes in and levels the playing field. Who would the conference add? Well, they wouldn't want to break up rivalries, so I think they would add Washington, Washington State, Oregon, and Oregon State to the conference. This would put them at 12 schools, and then add in the fact that they'll be bringing in Houston, Cincinnati, BYU, and UCF. That would complete the 16-team conference, and I actually do think that'd be a pretty competitive conference. You'd have 2 big brands in Oregon and Washington, and then a couple of powers on the rise, which include UCF and Cincinnati, which are arguably the 2 best group of 5 schools, and then a team like Oklahoma State, who's always near the top, and Baylor, who looks like a sleeping giant. No, they wouldn't be able to compete with the SEC and Big Ten right away, but they wouldn't be completely ruled out. So this does leave a couple more schools. So as we go back to the Big Ten, who should they add to complete their schedule, to complete their roster? Well, if the Big Ten was smart, they would find a way to expand the TV market even more, and that's why I say they go grab a Texas school and another Southern school. Who would those 2 schools be in my mind? That would be SMU and Memphis. I know those 2 aren't the biggest brands in the entire world, but Memphis is both good at football and basketball and would give you the Tennessee market. And then SMU obviously opens up TV packages in Dallas and across the entire state of Texas. Plus, that football program has been on the rise for quite a while now, and at this point, the Big Ten is just looking to make more money, not necessarily add to the quality of depth, which is why both of those schools make sense. So at this point, they have one more school remaining, and while there are multiple options here, I say they go with the best available, and they pick up Utah. No, Utah's TV market isn't great, and no, they're not very good at anything except football, but in terms of a football move, I think the Utes are a safe bet. This team finishes in the top 25 pretty much every year, and they've been a college football playoff contender a couple times now, so there's no reason why they should not add the Utes to the conference, as they will make it even more competitive, and yeah, you can at least expand TV out west. So what schools are left now? Well, you're going to have Arizona, Stanford, Boise State, USF, Arizona State, Colorado, and California. Those are at least the Power 5 schools left. When we take a look at the conference as a whole right now, the only conference that would need to add schools would be the ACC. Now here's the big question. Which one of these two conferences should expand to 20? Originally I was not going to do that, but I think there's a real chance that the Big 12 could expand to 20 schools and gobble up some of those Pac-12 teams. Who would they grab? Well, I think they'd grab both Arizona schools, and then the debate for the last two would be very interesting. Yes, you'd have the option to add USF, who is the rival of UCF, but they would already have that Florida TV market with the addition of UCF, and with the state of the USF program right now, I don't think it is lucrative enough to add them. The 19th school I would have them add is Stanford, and while some would argue that Stanford would not join because of academic reasons, I think at this point there would be pure desperation, and there would be no reason why the Cardinal would not join them. Punch them in as the 19th school. The debate for the final school will be very interesting, as I had it come down to Colorado, Cal, Boise State, and USF. Out of those four schools, they all have their benefits. Cal is a big-time historic program, USF is in the Florida market and is somewhat on the rise, Boise State is one of the most unique brands in the sport and would offer them a package out west, and then Colorado is obviously an old member. At the end of the day, that is why I decided to choose the Buffaloes, as they are not very good at basketball or football right now, but they were in the conference back in the day, and I do feel like they'd be the best option. This leaves one Power 5 school out. That is Cal. I know that is crazy to think, but Cal sports are pretty much a dumpster fire right now. They pretty much add little to no value in both basketball and football, and with their academic requirements and some people's thoughts on their politics, I'm not quite sure they're one of the top programs that people want. What does this mean, and where would they go? There's only one logical option right now, and that would be the ACC. Let's go ahead and move Cal over there, and while that makes no sense logistically, for the sake of this video and for the sake of everything going on, let's go ahead and put Cal in the ACC, and then also, let's now add a couple other schools. I think USF is definitely one of the first schools they would call, and then I think they would look to the two best group of 5 schools remaining, and I think they would gobble up Boise State and San Diego State. Those two teams have been very consistent out in the Mountain West, and that would bring the California market to the ACC, and then obviously one of the bigger brands in Boise State to the ACC. So there are 2 spots remaining. What should they do? Well, I think they're going to end up taking a risk here. The first school I would have them add is North Dakota State. I know that sounds absolutely crazy, but North Dakota State is the biggest FCS brand. They are a juggernaut at that level, and pretty much everyone knows who they are. If they had a chance to get up to the Power 5 level, I think it would take a little while, but they could be competitive, and with the ACC being absolutely desperate, I see no reason why they don't give them a call and at least try to make things work. I want to reiterate that this is based on no contracts or finances, because I don't know anything about that, and that would make this way too difficult. This would be the 15th team in the conference, which would leave one remaining spot. There are a couple of options here. You could go with up-and-coming schools such as Appalachian State and Coastal Carolina. You could go with another team that is somewhat considered Power 5 in Temple. You could go with another FCS program that has been great in James Madison. And then you could take a risk. You could add a school like Hawaii, which opens up a whole new TV market, and I think people would be excited to watch. Or you could add Liberty. Yeah, Hugh Freeze may not be there forever, and the Flames are not some sort of prestigious program. This would be another East Coast school that fits geographically, and maybe some people would want them. At the end of the day though, I'm going to end up playing it safe, and I'm going to go with Temple. Yes, I know the Owls are in a rough spot as a program, but they have had some good years, and they are historically a really good basketball school, so adding them would make sense a little bit. This is what, in my opinion, would be the new conference system, but we haven't even considered the fact that maybe there'll only be 2 different conferences, or maybe even the ACC dies. There's also the fact that maybe the Pac-12 even lives, and everything would be so chaotic. This is not my theory on what is going to happen. This is just me having fun. This is me theorizing things, And more importantly, it's just to get some discussion down in the comment section below, get people talking about it, and hopefully enlighten you a little bit on what could happen. If there is one thing that is for certain right now, it is that college football is going to go crazy, and that conference realignment is nowhere near complete. I want to know what you think down below. What do you think of my 4-conference system? Which teams did I get right and wrong? What are some schools I didn't consider? And give me down below what you think is going to happen. Before you go, don't forget to like the video if you want to support today's video, subscribe to the channel if you're new and love college football, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.